It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Electrify America. Electric cars, they're normal now. Learn more at normalnow.com. Electric cars may seem a little different, but new technology always seems weird at first. Even podcasts seemed weird when they first came out in the early 2000s, and now everyone listens to them. You're listening to one right now, and just like podcasts, electric cars are normal now. They have longer ranges, faster charging times, and now multiple models to choose from like sedans, SUVs, and even motorcycles, so you can find one that fits your life. Electric cars, they're normal now. Learn more at normalnow.com.
This is the Locked On Auburn podcast, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast, presented by Fetch Me Delivery. Use promo code FetchMe20 for your first delivery free. You can go to FetchMeDelivery.com or check out the free Fetch Me Delivery app. Zach Blackerby here with you, joined by Michael Pappas of ESPN 1067. Hello, Michael. How are you?
You know what, Zach?
What's up?
I'm doing okay.
Just okay?
Just okay.
Painter Sharples will be joining us in a few minutes, I believe. Why just okay, man?
I had a very good weekend until... What time do we leave Wild Wings? Like 6:30? I had a pretty good weekend until about 6:30 on Saturday.
What
happened?
happened?
The Browns won.
Okay.
I'll tell you later.
Okay. All right. So an interesting Sunday for Auburn fans. They came in at number 12 in the college football playoff rankings, and they are playing in the Outback Bowl against Minnesota. Of course, the P.J. Fleck-led Golden Gophers. Auburn fans kind of all over the place on this. The players thought they should have been ranked higher. It was an interesting thing. Anthony Schwartz and Sean Shivers tweeting out about that. But with 3 losses, I kind of think this is as good as you're going to be able to get. They needed some other things to happen that did not go their way. So I think Auburn playing in the Outback Bowl ranked 12, I think it makes sense. I think that is very fitting.
I agree. And people, I also saw some people upset that it looks like the Citrus Bowl picked Alabama instead of Auburn. But I'm going to be honest. I like this matchup with the Minnesota team. I think it's going to be fun. I think P.J. Fleck is a very good coach. And quite honestly, I think Minnesota is a better football team than Michigan. The Citrus Bowl went for the look at me matchup. I saw someone on Twitter call it look at the helmets. And, you know, they're getting Harbaugh versus Saban. And that's all good and fun, but it looks like it's going to be a shell Alabama team with half of their team not playing because they're all going pro. And, you know, I think this Outback Bowl against Minnesota is going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a good game. And Auburn's going to get a fun test against a very good Minnesota team.
Painter Sharpless now joining us. Painter, what do you think about this Outback Bowl matchup? We both think it makes sense.
I think a lot of people are happy that it's not Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I think Auburn needs to stamp on Minnesota. I do not hold Minnesota in the same regard as Auburn in terms of the talent on the team, the experience in coaching. At this point, this, I think, is a super favorable matchup for Auburn, one that they can go out on a high note. They said their goal was to win 10 games after they lost the Georgia game. They now have that opportunity to do so. To me, this is a no-brainer. Auburn recruits better. Their coaching staff has played for a national title, some of them multiple. Auburn needs to win this game decisively.
I wouldn't be shocked if I don't think it'll be this drastic of a beatdown, but I bet the outcome is similar to what we saw last year. That is my early jump on it. I don't think they're going to kill them, by 50 or whatever. But I do think this is going to be a situation where Auburn is just the more talented team from top to bottom.
I think
Vegas already has them as a double-digit favorite.
It opened at 9. I think it moved to 8.5.
Okay, so it moved in the wrong direction. Okay, then I'm mistaken. I thought it moved in the direction of Auburn. I'm mistaken.
Yeah, no, I think it's moved a little bit towards Minnesota. I wouldn't be shocked if it moved towards double digits as we get closer, but just from a talent standpoint, it's just night and day.
I'm shocked by everything that you guys have just said.
Why? What is it that Minnesota? I mean, I think they're on a really great path, and they beat a good Wisconsin team.
Yeah.
That's it.
No,
that's
they
what
lost
That's
to
what they did.
Wisconsin.
That's their resume.
Oh,
Yeah.
excuse me. Who I'm mistaken. Who did they beat at the end of the year?
Penn State.
Okay, there we go. Excuse me.
Tanner Morgan, their quarterback, is a very good quarterback. They've got a safety, Antoine Winfield, who's Antoine Winfield's
all right,
son.
now let's go ahead. They're not going to win because of their offense. Because their offense isn't going to be able to move the football. Let's just go ahead and address that real quick. So like they can have good quarterbacks, they can have good receivers, but
Is he better than Joe Burrow? No. Better than
Yeah, but Derek Brown's not going to play in the bowl game.
I hope Derek doesn't play in the bowl game, but I won't be surprised if he doesn't. I think it would be almost foolish to. He's the kind of guy that would, but I hope he doesn't.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't as well. But I mean, guys like Tyron Truesdale, I'd love to see Connis Miller get more reps. I mean, these guys are going to be able to hold their own, and I think they're going to be able to push around Minnesota's offensive line. I don't think 9 or 10 points in this spread. I don't think it's enough.
Yeah, and my bad earlier. You were right, Michael. Wisconsin won 38-17, whereas Minnesota edged out Penn State by 5.
Yeah, more in this conversation in just a moment because I want to hear Michael's thoughts on this. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Guys, remember the days when you were always ready to go? Blue Chew brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis. Blue Chew is prescribed online by licensed physicians, so you don't have to go to the doctor's office or wait in line at the pharmacy, and it ships right to your door in a discreet package. They're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy, and best of all, there's no more awkwardness. Right now, we've got a special deal for our listeners. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first shipment free when you use our special promo code, CODE. That's just $5 in shipping. Again, that's BLUE Chew.com, promo code CODE. That's what the live read says, folks, to try it free. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Electrify America. Electric cars, they're normal now. Learn more at normalnow.com. Electric cars may seem a little different, but new technology always seems weird at first. Just think of podcasts. They were weird when they first came out in the early 2000s. They were actually called audio blogs, and you had to download them onto MP3 players, and now people all over the world listen to podcasts all the time. Just like podcasts, electric cars are normal now. They have longer ranges, meaning they're not just for work commutes. You can take an electric vehicle to your weekend getaway and even on longer road trips. They have faster recharging times, so you don't have to wait around all day for your car to charge. There are more models to choose from. There's sedans, SUVs, luxury vehicles, and even motorcycles, so you can find one that fits your life. With more affordable models and less routine maintenance, they may actually help you save some money. Electric cars, they're normal now. Learn more at normalnow.com.
Your team.
Greetings, 12 Locked On Seahawks podcast.
Who dat family, and welcome into this week's Locked On Saints.
Hello to all you Foxborough faithful, Locked On Patriots.
Every day.
Another Victory Monday.
It's officially Throwback Tuesday.
Crossover Wednesday episode.
Thursday Night Football.
It is Red Friday edition.
When it comes to the biggest stories.
And so the Chiefs' news story of today is, unfortunately, at this point in the season, it is continuing to be injuries.
You need to be locked on.
We've touched about it on this show and all over Twitter and all that.
And all of a sudden we have a great football team with a championship defense, a franchise quarterback, a running game that can't be stopped. This is exactly why we watch football.
Good quarterbacks are maximized in good systems. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers this season.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
In the Apple Podcast app.
Google Podcasts.
Spotify.
Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Michael, I kind of want to give you the floor here. You think Painter and I are kind of off here in regards to Auburn outmatching Minnesota in the Outback Bowl. Tell us why we're wrong.
I just think that this Minnesota team should not be taken lightly, and if this ends up being a closer game, that people shouldn't be surprised. I don't want to spend the next 3 weeks being like Auburn should whoop them, and then Auburn come out and lose, and everyone freak out. Like, it is a bowl game, which means a lot of times one team cares more than another team. And Minnesota is not a bad team.
The way you said Minnesota, that was the perfect pronunciation. And I'm not being facetious.
I totally missed it. Do it again.
Minnesota?
The first time you did it with just a little bit of Minnesota.
Oh.
But anyway, go ahead. I digress.
They're a very good team. I mean, they almost won the Big Ten East. They were a win against Wisconsin away from winning the Big Ten East. They, if not for a slip up, I believe against Iowa. So let me ask you,
where's the mismatch? Where's the matchup where Minnesota's like, all right, this is it? Outside of Auburn pulling a Chick-fil-A ball like they did a few years ago against UCF, that's the only way I see Minnesota winning.
And aren't those circumstances different? Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know the Minnesota roster all that well, but I know that they've got
the look on your face. I mean, you were genuinely shocked when we said, this shouldn't be a contest. I mean, you were genuinely shocked. What caused that surprise?
Well, first off, I think PJ Fleck is an extremely good coach, which means that I expect this Minnesota team to be ready to play and well prepared for the game. Tanner Morgan, I think, is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country. No, he's not Joe Burrow. So, yes, there is a chance that the offense gets completely shut down. They've got a receiver. I don't know his name. I apologize. I'll know it for tomorrow's show.
We will learn all about Minnesota over the next few weeks. Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
A big dude. He's been their go-to guy. He's been very good. And then their defense outside of, really the Wisconsin game has been very, very good also. Antoine Winfield, I believe, led the country in interceptions. He's going to be an All-American. He's a safety for them. He's Antoine Winfield's son. And so,
how about that?
I think Auburn's going to win the game. I just don't think it is. I was just surprised that you guys were both so like, Auburn's going to kill them.
I just think they're so much better of a team. They've recruited longer. They've recruited better. PJ Fleck got Coach of the Year. Like in that conference, he's a great coach. That fan base should be super excited about what they've got coming, especially when you look at what their past holds. Yeah. And if he wants to stick around, good. Like he might be able to turn them into something in the ballpark of Penn State in terms of, I don't know about the longevity. I'm not comparing him to Joe Paterno, but in terms of being the third or fourth best team most years in the conference, and then maybe stockpiling some talent and making a real run for a conference title every couple seasons. Like, I can see that, but they're not there yet.
Well, and PJ Fleck is going to be able to coach up guys. And, I think players that go through Minnesota are going to get better. My biggest thing is Minnesota's just not going to be able to recruit with Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Penn State. It's just not going to happen.
They really only have to recruit with Wisconsin, right? Because they play in the East. And so, the East or the West. The Big Ten West, right?
I thought they did the Legends and Leaders thing.
They backed off that, if I'm not mistaken.
That's a good call. That was a good call.
They're in the Big Ten West with Wisconsin, so they've got to beat Wisconsin every year, and that's pretty much it.
They
played Iowa.
They played Penn State this year, though.
That's
so
true.
It still matters. Still matters. Like when Florida recruits better than Auburn, like it still affects Auburn.
We'll see. PJ Fleck, like we're saying, is an incredible coach, and we'll see if he can sustain success.
His big thing is row the boat. There's literally a big boat in the stadium that they're going to be playing in. Who do you think that benefits? Do you think that benefits PJ Fleck and the Golden Gophers?
If they can get a sail on that boat on the pirate ship, then I think Auburn's already lost the game.
In a somewhat meaningless statistic, this is from our good friend Gianna Hahn at AL.com. She notes that the Golden Gophers are 8-1 against SEC teams all time. The last time they got together, they lost to Missouri in the Citrus Bowl, 33-17. Neither of those things will have a bearing on this game.
Speaking of things that don't have a bearing on this game, but do have a bearing on the big picture, how you guys feel about the Lane train rolling into Oxford?
Don't get me started. I'm here for it, baby.
I love it for Ole Miss. I love it.
I think
they're instantly a national story again.
They're not only a national story, which is how I think a lot of people are looking at this, as, he'll get them to 6 to 8 wins. I think with enough time and the coaching staff that he's apparently putting together, like they could be in the ballpark of what Hugh Freeze did, which is if you're winning to 9 to 11 games at Ole Miss, fantastic. If you're getting to 7 or 8 and you're doing it with exciting offense, still pretty good. Like, people will care about Ole Miss again. And basically, His entire fan base is just him. It's just a bunch of people like him. So they will embrace him.
Benefits of knowing your audience, right?
Yes.
I'm pumped for Ole Miss fans. I really am. I think this is the perfect hire for them. I don't know anything about the guy that Arkansas hired.
Same.
Good
Pittman.
luck. Good luck to him.
They're just so, it's like whoever takes that job, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's rough.
luck.
It's rough. Hey, if you're a Spotify listener and use Spotify Wrapped to show us your top Locked On podcast for the year, take a screenshot and tag us at Locked On Live, and as well as at Locked On Auburn on Twitter, and we would love to share and retweet.
Your team
Okay, let's get it. Locked on LSU, your team every day.
Welcome back in to Locked On Bama.
You're going to hear about it all week long on Locked On Buckeyes.
every day.
Monday through Friday.
When it comes to the biggest stories,
everybody's talking, and we're not excluded from the mix.
Everything that you could want from a post-game recap, we're going to do.
They're far and away the number one team in the country. Winning at this point is the only thing that matters. It's going to put you in meaningful games later.
you need to be Locked On.
Tua is the best of us. He is an incredible kid, immensely talented, and it's such a shame that his fairy tale ending was actually at the beginning.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
In the Apple Podcast app.
Google Podcasts.
Spotify.
Hit us up with those 5 stars, and we're going to be here 5 days a week. 1 star for every day of the week.
Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
If you want to hear more shows like this, well, just go to LockedOnPodcasts.com.
So we mentioned this a little bit at the top of the show, guys. What do you think about Auburn's placement and, Auburn players kind of tweeting out their frustration with where they're headed? I was a little surprised by it, especially since, we hadn't really seen a whole lot of players tweeting out and kind of lashing out since the whole them calling out the fan base thing against Ole Miss. I kind of thought that had been handled. I guess not. And this isn't as big of a deal, I don't think. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do Anthony Schwartz and Sean Shivers, and there were a few others. Those are the two that kind of drew headlines. Do you think it's a valid argument? Because I'm not seeing it.
I'm not surprised. They've got, I guess, the one thing you could probably say is like, hey, if you care enough to say that the Citrus Bowl should have taken them, then sure. But like, if they're aware of how they divvy this up and the way the rankings work and how the New Year's Six Bowls work, then we saw this coming. They've also got 3 losses. Now, the counter argument to that is few teams played a schedule like that. So most teams would probably have some extra losses if they played that schedule.
I think if they played every team ranked in the top 10, if you have more than 2 losses, you're out of it.
Yeah.
I think there's a threshold that more than 2 losses, it doesn't matter anymore.
They would have needed Utah to win and an all-time beatdown from Ohio State for Auburn to be in a New Year's Six game. And, Oregon won. I'm surprised that Oregon jumped all the way up to number 6 or wherever.
I mean, they're a conference champ. Like, they're 11-2. I get it. But
and they stomped Utah. That game was not close.
Are you all that convinced that Baylor, Wisconsin, Florida, Penn State, and obviously Utah are better than Oregon? Maybe you are, but they didn't win their conference. And so I think when you're splitting hairs, it's like, well, you got to default to the conference champion. So I'm okay with them moving Oregon up to 6. I understand why people are like, they're probably not really the 6th best team in the country, but also kind of like what you do with Georgia there at 5. What else do you do with them?
Yeah, it's the old best team versus the most deserving discussion,
I think Georgia at 5 is crazy.
Yeah,
I think it's I don't think it matters.
It doesn't. It's window dressing, right? It doesn't. Like, as soon as you hit 5, it's like, well, you're in a New Year's Six Bowl, so that's like obviously a plus, something to hang your hat on.
Yeah, 5 and 8 are the same thing.
But 5 feels really cold compared to 4, whereas if you're 9, it's like Florida's 9 and Georgia's 5th, and who cares, really?
Man, Georgia fans are probably the most upset fan base in the SEC right now. I mean, there are folks calling for Kirby Smart's job, saying that he's Mark Richt 2.0. He can't win when it matters, and I think there's a lot of Auburn fans taking a lot of joy and a lot of happiness watching this kind of collapse happen.
I'm here for the take that Kirby Smart's going to get that national title. I know it's been elusive for the Georgia fans. They are recruiting at an outstanding level. They've got a decision to make, and I don't think it's a difficult one about what direction they want this offense to go in. It can't stay like this. I'm okay if you want to run some pro style. Like we see teams do that some. Alabama will do it some. But, I mean, look at what Justin Fields is doing. Their offense is stuck in the decades past. Even Nick Saban, who was pretty reluctant to do this, was like, all right, we're just going to do this, and I'll adjust. I don't think he preferred it, and now they've got one of the best offenses in the entire country.
Yeah, I mean, they made the wrong decision. And that's kind of one of those things, like, everyone knew they were making the wrong decision.
Wait, what do you mean? From over Fields?
Yes.
I don't think that's fair to say, because Justin Fields in the Georgia offense would not be Justin Fields in the Ohio State offense.
I get Zach's point, and I think we all probably assume Fields' ceiling was higher without really having seen the kid play a meaningful game, since most of the time he was coming in a package or in garbage time. And so I think it was perfect for him to go to Ohio State, where they've had all the success on offense. They've, clearly the talent there is outrageous. It's up there with Clemson and Georgia and Alabama. But yeah, to your point also, Michael, like he just would be doing different things had he beaten out Jake Fromm. I also think with Fromm, the dude, all he's done is gotten that team to 3 SEC championship games. I have no problem with Kirby Smart saying, we're sticking with that. We're sticking with the guy who has gotten us to back-to-back champion. Well, I guess at the time, yeah, exactly.
And he did win one of those. I mean, Auburn was on the wrong side of that one.
Well, they found out what it was like to not have some of your best players. Makes that SEC championship game a little harder. Now, I don't know if they would have beaten LSU anyway, but I don't think if they'd had a healthier DeAndre Swift and a George Pickens that plays the whole game and a little bit better of an offensive line.
And Cager would have played, and then they had the other receiver.
I just think that was more than just a few players.
I think there was also a bad matchup for Georgia. Just like the way that fell, the strengths of each team. Nonetheless, I get why they stuck with Fromm. I do. But I think Fields, the thing that you're saying, Zach, I think is true. It's like, yeah, it seems like in the college game, at least his ceiling has got to be higher.
I'm curious to see how this fan outlashing towards Georgia, as well as Kirby Smart's comments post game, and I shared this on the Locked On Auburn Twitter account, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but he was asked about Jake Fromm's development because his stats were better previously than this year. Like statistically, he's gotten worse, and even on the eye test, it looks like he's taking a step back. And he essentially said, like, hey, we lost receivers, and it's up to me to replace them, and I didn't get it done. And it's like, what? You're essentially just coming out saying the supporting cast isn't good enough? Why would you say that?
Yeah, that's a lot. I am on the opposite side of Painter. I think Georgia gets talked up a lot as a football, like a national powerhouse right now, and they haven't really won anything. They've won one SEC title under Kirby Smart, and obviously they didn't make it to the national championship.
I mean, to be fair, like they've gotten to the SEC championship, and people will say, well, it's a weak East, and it's like, yeah, I guess, but then like if they win that game against the number 1 overall LSU team and the number 1 overall Alabama team, it's like, yeah, okay, like it's it's understandable to lose a very close game to Alabama last year, who was the number 1 team in the country, right?
Yes.
Was Clemson number 1 at that time, or was Alabama still on?
I think
one or two.
I think Alabama was.
Now, this year's a little different, right? Because they just got smoked.
Yeah, it didn't look like they belonged.
Yeah, but if you'll recall, Jim McElwain at Florida was winning the SEC East also. Granted,
the East was at its worst, and they didn't actually ever win one. So, and then he got run off.
Yeah,
and he didn't recruit well. So, it's not the same because one of them has a top 5 roster in the country and is sending players to the NFL and has won 3 straight Eastern Division championships and managed to actually win the game in 2017, whereas McElwain just went and got his ass kicked twice.
That's true. I just think that there is a little bit of a comparison there because
a weak East is I think the weak East thing is fair.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how Florida now it seems like they're back. I really like what Dan Mullen has going on at Florida.
They're playing Virginia. I mean, as long as they show up, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, so it'll be fun to see how the early signing period goes. I think Auburn's going to get some surprises. I think Auburn should be in a good spot. Painter, where can people find you and hear you, bud?
11-1, catch the lunch break, Justin Ferguson and me. Hope that you will listen to that. That's ESPN 1067. You can hear that at ESPNAU.com and the ESPN 1067 app. Also in podcast form if that suits you. And if you're listening to this, I think it does.
Yes. Michael Pappas?
Follow me on Twitter at CouchPapTato. If you're looking to make some money on a futures bet, take Clemson to win the national championship.
Can they hear that?
That was so loud. All right, follow me on Twitter at ZBlackby. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Auburn. This has been another edition of the Locked On Auburn podcast.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.